Hello friends, and welcome to the fifth and final background speed paint for this first main scene for my Futurama project. And if you've not been following, this is a project to show the first part of a Futurama fan film written by Dave from Blender Planet. So do subscribe to follow along and hit that bell to be notified as I release new updates. And as this is the last background to be drawn for this scene, I thought I'd run over a few of my thoughts I've had about this project so far. Well, the past few weeks have been pretty samey as I've drawn the same room but from different angles, but I've learned plenty doing so, which is always a good thing. And unfortunately, drawing backgrounds is a slow but necessary process, and in this case, necessary to do before I can animate over it. And these backgrounds of the conference room that our characters appear in will be reused again and again, so it's important to try to get them right. But until I do animate the characters in them, I won't know for definite if I've got them right, in particular around the seats and the table. I need to work out the best way to place a character on a seat with most of them behind the table, but with their arms in front of it, all animating together. So that'll be one of my first challenges to work out in the coming weeks, and I can't wait to get started with it. But back to the backgrounds. So I've changed a few things and learned a few new things since I started drawing these backgrounds. Firstly, don't underestimate the speed up you'll get by learning and using keyboard shortcuts. By being able to flip between drawing straight lines with the geometry tool and curves or hand-drawn lines with the brush tool, it really sped up my progress. Incidentally, that's another thing. Holding the shift key while drawing lines with the geometry tool makes them precisely horizontal or vertical, and that really made them so much easier to control and gave me a better finish. And by remembering and using a limited set of shortcut keys, it meant I could use the full screen option more often and zoom in more to get more precise lines. And to be able to draw longer lines in one swift movement, making those much more smoother. And also, last week I added a subtle gradient fill to the TV screen and the table using a new vector layer and one of the built-in vector gradient fills. And that really made them pop and look more professional and more like the images from the show. So after I'd finished last week's video, I went to the other backgrounds that I'd drawn and added a gradient fill to those too, which really helped them. And today I added another one to the floor, which again, although subtle, made it look much better. So now I need to go back to the other backgrounds and add it to those too. And looking at the chairs in the screenshot that I took today from Series 8, they've got a gradient too, so I might need to add one there, but we'll see. So because I created a separate project for backgrounds and another one for the actual animation scenes, when I add a background using the load option, this means that when I change a background, once it's added to a scene, it'll automatically be updated. So when I reload the animation scene, or just render it out using my render tasks, it should then include any background changes. But work on this project will be a good way for me to check if that workflow helps me or not. But I'll talk more about that next week. So today's background was pretty much more of the same, but with the addition of the gradient floor. And I've also experimented with adding a lighting effect on the main room light. And that came out okay, so I might add more later, and I'm thinking specifically of the kitchen lights, but I'll come back to those. And also today, after adding this effect, I started to consider how I might use this scene. And I've got quite a few columns and a few effects for them. And considering this is just the background, and on top of that I've got to put the characters, any other effects, any animation and camera moves, I've had a few thoughts on how I could simplify things. But again, I'll mull them over and we'll chat about them next week. Oh, and by the way, if you're not already, do follow me on Twitter or Facebook for updates about this project and sneak peeks to my progress. Or join me on the OpenToonz Discord to chat about all things OpenToonz. The links are down in the description below. So now that I've finished this background, I've got all the backgrounds I need for this first actual scene. And before I start drawing or animating the characters for the scene, what I'll do next is I'll add the backgrounds into the scene and set up some basic camera moves. And to get that scene set up, ready for the next stage, and that's what I'll be doing next time, which I can't wait to do. So do join me then when we'll start to see this project finally coming together. And that's a Darren Tea.